This edition of Primetime News, President Park Geun-hye pays her respect to American soldiers who gave their lives for Korea's freedom at the Korean War Veterans Memorial, vowing a stronger Seoul-Washington alliance. Professors and faculty members at top universities in Korea willingly put their jobs and future on the line to take a stand against the government's decision to create a single state-authorized history textbook. Korea's central bank lowers its growth outlook for the Korean economy, citing growing uncertainties in the global economy and the fallout from the MERS outbreak. Stay with us for these stories and much more. It's 10 p.m. on a Thursday here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Daniel Choy for Primetime News. Let's start with the first story. President Park Geun-hye has begun her trip to Washington with a visit to the Korean War Veterans Memorial. In addition to paying tribute to the fallen heroes, she pledged to further strengthen South Korea's alliance with the United States. Hwang Sung-hee has our top story.
Remembering the American soldiers who fought in the Korean War was the first item on President Park's itinerary in Washington. She paid tribute with a wreath-laying ceremony at the Korean War Veterans Memorial on Wednesday, calling them true heroes. She was joined by surviving veterans and family members of those who served in the war. Vowing to further strengthen Seoul's alliance with Washington, President Park said South Koreans will never forget those who helped them when they were in trouble.
한국 전쟁은 결코 잊혀진 전쟁이 아니라 지금도 사람들이 기억하면서 그 의미를 새기고 있는 살아있는 역사가 되고 있음을 알 수가 있습니다.
More than 36,500 American soldiers sacrificed their lives during the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. President Park also visited the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in an effort to strengthen cooperation with Washington on space issues, including lunar exploration.
협력을 우주 쪽에서도 확대함으로써 우주 탐사의 어떤 능력도 더 향상시키고 또 우주 자원도 공유할 수 있는 그런 좋은 기회가 됐으면 합니다.
At a separate dinner event to mark the alliance between South Korea and the U.S., President Park noted their bilateral ties go way back to the Korean War and said Seoul is a partner that Washington can truly trust. The event was attended by roughly 600 people, including U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. On Thursday, President Park will begin her day with a visit to the Pentagon to mark the strong military ties between South Korea and the U.S. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Washington.
Turning our eyes back to South Korea, a growing number of university professors are voicing their opposition to a government plan to issue a single state-authorized history textbook. Many have issued statements declaring their refusal to participate in the writing of the text. And according to our Park Ji-won, many more are likely to join in.
Dozens of history professors from the country's most prestigious universities, including Korea and Yonsei University, have issued statements against the government's decision to publish a single history textbook starting in 2017. 13 history professors at Yonsei University issued a statement earlier this week saying they will not participate in the process of making the textbook in any way. They were joined by 22 history professors at Korea-U.S. who said they can't allow the government to push ahead with the plan, and 9 history professors at Kyung-hee University who issued a similar statement. More statements were issued Thursday by professors at several more universities, including Ewha Women's, Busan National, and Seonggyungwan. And as the momentum builds, more university faculty members are considering joining the campaign. Against this backdrop, Korea's rival parties continue to promote their positions on the matter. The conservative ruling Saenuri Party held a general meeting for its lawmakers on Thursday to confirm its view that the current textbooks should be corrected in consideration of Korea's unique situation as a country divided.
It is paramount for students to establish a proper, balanced perspective on the nation, as Korea is the world's only divided country, where the deep pangs of ideological confrontation remain.
On the other side of the political aisle, the main opposition party hailed the professors' statements.
University professors have declared their objections at the risk of incurring disadvantages from the education ministry in university evaluations, research funds, and the like, who respect their conscience.
The party says it is planning to organize rallies outside Parliament in conjunction with the general public and academia to pressure the government to withdraw the plan. The Education Ministry stated to confirm its decision early next month. Park Geun-hye, Arirang News.
Sticking with local politics, the feud over remarks by an opposition party lawmaker who said the 2012 presidential election was rigged intensified today. The ruling party adopted a resolution against the lawmaker in question, and the opposition dismissed him from a parliamentary committee. Our Kim Young-gil looks into the issue.
The ruling Saenuri Party took action on Thursday against main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy lawmaker Kang Dong-won, who is currently under fire for saying that the 2012 presidential election was rigged in favor of current leader Park Geun-hye.
Our party has adopted a resolution to denounce lawmaker Kang Dong-won for his misdeeds. Kang has committed an act of political terrorism and insulted the Korean people.
The ruling party submitted Kang's case to the National Assembly's Ethics Committee and urged NPAD to punish him for his remarks. In response, the opposition dismissed Kang from the National Assembly's House Steering Committee, though it will not demand he give up his assembly seat. NPAD leader Moon Jae-in repeated an earlier statement that Kang's remarks represent his opinion and not that of the party. Moon also accused the ruling party of having hidden motives for making such a fuss about the incident.
The ruling party is trying to use this incident to cover up the current uproar over state-authored textbooks. The party should not overreact to Kang's remarks.
The National Election Commission released a statement on Wednesday refuting Kang and said the vote count in 2012 was accurate and transparent. That year, Park Geun-hye ran a close race against her main rival Moon Jae-in, with Park receiving 51.6% of the vote and Moon, the current opposition leader, taking 48%. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Moving on, the two Koreas are in the final stages of preparations for a long-awaited round of inter-Korean family reunions next week. The South Korean delegation, consisting of 14 government and Red Cross officials, crossed the border into the north for a final checkup on the event details with their North Korean counterparts. The southern delegation, led by Red Cross President Kim Sung-ju, is expected to make final arrangements with the north on the venue, transportation, and reunion timetable. Some 650 South Koreans will reunite with family members living in the north during 6 sessions set to be held between October 20th and the 26th. Recent satellite imagery shows North Korea is continuing to develop its submarine-launched ballistic missile capabilities. Experts believe such development of missile capabilities could be integrated within the next 5 years. Kim Yeon-bin gives us the latest on the regime's unyielding military ambition.
According to the North Korea specialized website 38 North on Wednesday, a vertical launch tube capable of launching a submarine-launched ballistic missile is being developed at the Sinpo South shipyard in the north. CNN has also reported on October 9th, a day before the 70th anniversary of the founding of North Korea's Workers' Party, that Pyongyang could conduct an SLBM test in the near future.
North Korea has successfully test-launched an SLBM, but no word has come out about its development. Based on the imagery, it looks like Pyongyang is trying to enhance its rocket capabilities, and we expect them to be implemented in its Navy within the next 5 years.
The website said that the satellite imagery from last month indicates that a temporary superstructure has been erected to conduct stabilization, fire control systems, and injection tests. Experts say if the SLBM is integrated, it will become a grave threat not only to the region, but also to the United States.
If North Korea's SLBM is integrated, Seoul as well as Tokyo and Washington will be threatened. It is hard to detect SLBM, so South Korea needs to enhance its Korea air and missile defense system and other surveillance capabilities.
The website also pointed out that the modernization of construction halls and machine shops, which started in June of 2014, seems to be almost complete, leading experts to presume that the regime is most likely to carry another SLBM test launch very soon. 김현빈, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's defense ministry has reiterated that Japan cannot enter Korean territory without permission. Defense ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok said Thursday he was clarifying remarks made during a parliamentary interpellation session the previous day by Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won, who said the Japanese military could advance into Korea after consulting with the government in inevitable situations and within necessary boundaries. Hwang has since faced criticisms that his statement wasn't strong enough. Concerns over Japan's greater military role abroad have grown with Tokyo's passage of security legislation last month, permitting its military to fight alongside its allies even when not under attack. Japan and China remain divided on UNESCO's recent decision to add documents related to the Nanjing Massacre to its Memory of the World Register. Japan has called for the two countries to focus on the future, while China calls for an acknowledgement of the past. Connie Kim has the full story.
In a meeting with visiting China State Councilor Yang Jae-chi in Tokyo on Wednesday, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe voiced his regret about Beijing's successful bid to have documents on the Nanjing Massacre added to UNESCO's Memory of the World Register. According to Tokyo-based Kyodo News, Abe said the two countries should not maintain an excessive focus on the unfortunate past, but work to build future-oriented bilateral relations. Yang reportedly underscored the importance of acknowledging history in order to move forward. Last week, UNESCO added to the register Chinese documents on the Nanjing Massacre committed by Japan's Imperial Army in 1937. Included are 11 sets of files from text to film and photographs recorded between 1937 and 1948. The 16 photos added to the registry include graphic images of Japan's heinous acts. Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency reported Thursday the pictures show the Japanese military beheading Chinese prisoners who are on their knees and rows of dead Chinese bodies lying in the streets. Beijing says some 300,000 people died in the campaign of rape and mass killing. Relations between China and Japan remain frosty, but the two countries remain united on bilateral cooperation, which is set to be discussed at a trilateral summit that includes Korea in the coming weeks. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Korea's central bank revised down the country's growth forecast for this year and next, both by 0.1 percentage point, making it the third adjustment this year. Along with that, the BOK held its key interest rate at its record low for another month. For the digits and more, we turn to Shin Se-min.
The Bank of Korea cut its growth outlook for the Korean economy this year by 0.1 percentage point to 2.7%. BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol said the weaker-than-expected GDP in the second quarter of this year, driven by the fallout of the MERS outbreak, along with looming external economic instabilities, dominated the decision.
The lowered forecast comes from growing uncertainties in the global economy, driven by slowing emerging economies like China, added with the impact of the U.S. rate hike.
The central bank also trimmed its forecast for next year by 0.1 percentage point to 3.2%. But the top central banker remained confident that Korea's long-term potential growth rate still remains in the 3% range, while experts say the economy might have entered its slowing growth phase earlier than it should have. They say this is punctuated by the 3 consecutive downward revisions to Korea's outlook on expansion.
With the current underlying circumstances, like a growing aging population, along with a shrinking workforce, Korea might lose more potential growth down the line.
The central bank also cut its inflation forecast for this year to 0.7% from 0.9% in July on the back of low global commodity prices steered by cheaper oil. Despite these projections, the central bank kept its key rate unchanged at an all-time low of 1.5% as it gauges the impact of a small pickup in domestic consumption in contrast with the continued slide in the country's exports. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, we've been reporting regularly on Korea's export woes in the current economic climate, but in reality, the country has been faring reasonably well compared to some of its Asian neighbors. Korea has seen its global market share increase over the past 10 years. But looking ahead, China's slowdown is the dark cloud on the horizon. Kim Min-ji explains further.
Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Collectively, they're called Asia's Four Dragons due to their exceptionally high growth rates and rapid industrialization between the 1960s and 1990s. The good news for Korea? It's currently outperforming the other three in terms of trade. According to financial services firm J.P. Morgan, the global presence of Korea's exports have been on an upward trend for the past decade. The country's exports accounted for 2.8% of the global total in 2005, but stood at 3.4% last year. Over the same period, Taiwan has seen its figures slowly decline, while Singapore's share has remained unchanged. Experts say Korea has been less susceptible to external shocks, such as weak demand in emerging economies, as it exports a wider variety of products in Taiwan and Singapore. In 2005, Korea ranked 10th in terms of global export volume at just over $300 billion. It's climbed the ladder to sit at 6th as of last year with over $600 billion. Singapore fell 2 ranks to 19th over the same period, while Hong Kong saw its ranking tumble 6 notches. While Korea has been faring better than the other dragons, it has been seeing its exports stumble this year due to weak global growth, especially in China. China is set to record its lowest growth rate in over 2 decades this year. This is a big concern as more than a quarter of Korea's outbound shipments go to the world's second largest economy. Experts say preemptive measures need to be taken to minimize the negative impact, and the government needs to come up with new export strategies to meet China's changing trade paradigm. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Korea is known for being a trendsetter in technology, and it is ready to do the same with 3D printing. That's not surprising considering Korea has a deep and rich printing heritage that goes back centuries. Our Oh Se-young takes us to a festival that allows visitors to take a look back and ahead at Korea's printing technology.
At this studio in central Seoul, you can make your ideas come to life through 3D printing.
Each Thursday, anyone can come by to print anything from drones to smaller architectural pieces, all for free. In this way, we're helping people easily create and share their crafts.
The studio is one of similar centres popping up in Seoul, allowing easy access to Korea's advanced printing technology. In fact, Korea excels in various kinds of printing, not just the 3D variety. And at this festival in Seoul, you can experience the country's abundant printing culture, which dates back centuries. Displaying antique machinery and age-old techniques, the festival introduces Korea's fruitful printing heritage, which laid the foundation for the country's present-day advancement in printing.
Korea's woodblock printing can be traced back to the 8th century, and the book Jikji was published in the early 13th century. It's the world's oldest existing book to be printed with metal movable type, as confirmed by UNESCO.
Visitors can also experiment with these latest printing gadgets, such as 3D and digital.
Normally, when you think of printing, it seems very technical and rigid, but we had a lot of fun today playing with all sorts of printing methods.
There's also an exhibition of this year's award-winning printing works, from photography books to brightly coloured package designs.
Korea exports a lot of printing material, up to $300 million worth in 2013. But not many people are aware of its rich printing culture. So our festival aims to promote this.
With open events like these, Korea's excellence in printing is becoming widely accessible for the public to enjoy. Oh Se-young, Arirang News.
Now for international headlines with Bruce Harrison at the News Center.
Good evening, Daniel. Much of the public is concerned in Japan as the government fires back up a nuclear reactor with the Fukushima disaster still fresh in mind. In Israel, the government has blocked off many Arabic neighborhoods amid a spree of fatal violence this month. And the opposition gasses Kosovo's parliament in a bid to block a bill concerning the Serbian minority.
Well, Bruce, let's start over in Japan. I know it could be lower electricity bills with atomic energy, but of course, it's more than worth the price if you think about the peace in mind that Japanese citizens will have, especially after the nuclear nightmare not too long ago.
Exactly, Daniel. It's more than just bills. The massive meltdowns at Fukushima were just shy of 5 years ago, and the country is still suffering from that disaster. So, of course, there's concern. But Japan is wrapping up 2 years of safety checks at some facilities, and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is itching to cut fuel bills. As part of his nuclear power push, the number 2 reactor at the Sendai nuclear facility came back online today. The Prime Minister wants nuclear power to account for 20 to 22% of the country's energy mix by 2030.
We will continue to restart nuclear reactors that meet what's called one of the most strict safety standards in the world, respecting the judgment of the government's nuclear authority.
Safety aside, Abe's goal is widely seen as unrealistic, and opposition to nuclear power remains widespread. Apparently, though, just 7 of Japan's 42 reactors are likely to be turned on in the next few years. The Fukushima meltdowns released radioactive material and forced 160,000 people from their homes. Many will never return. Israel has closed off Arabic neighborhoods in Jerusalem to try and stop a wave of knife attacks. The violence peaked earlier this week as Palestinians stabbed and shot to death several Jews and wounded many others. Attacks have also been recently reported against Arabs. Palestinians traveling from neighborhoods in Arab East Jerusalem today sat in lines of cars for hours at Israeli military checkpoints. Roadblocks are also hurting parts of the economy. Shop owners in the Old City say business has dried up, but for some, security is the greater concern. They're worried about being targeted as assailants.
You leave your home and you can't wait to get to the shop. You leave the shop and you can't wait to get to your home.
The violence partly stems from Muslims angered over a growing number of Jewish visits to a mosque in Jerusalem that both sides view as holy. When voting down a bill isn't seen as an option, lawmakers have been known to fight and resort to other tactics. The opposition in Kosovo's parliament used tear gas today to disrupt discussion of a bill. This was the second time the opposition has gassed the chamber in a week in protest of a European Union brokered deal with Serbia. The accord would grant ethnic Serb areas of Kosovo greater local powers and possible funding from Serbia's capital, Belgrade. Opposition lawmakers say the proposal threatens Kosovo's independence, which it gained from Serbia in 2008 with the backing of the West. A bloc of opposition parties say they'll continue to disrupt Parliament's work until the proposal is dropped from the agenda. And that's a glimpse of the world today. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your weather report. We had a very warm afternoon today with the mercury in Seoul soaring to 26.1 degrees Celsius, or about 6 degrees higher than the average temperature for this time of the year. Now, tomorrow might not be as warm as today, but still going to be quite mild with highs hovering around 24 degrees. And the central regions of the country will start out the day under partly sunny skies, but should get sunnier as the day goes on, whereas the southern regions will experience the opposite. But for those of you who are in the Gyeongsang-do provinces, will need to be ready for some sporadic showers in the afternoon. And tomorrow's temperature readings will be similar to today, as the daily low here in Seoul will kick off at 13 before hitting 24, and Gwangju will also top out at 24, while Daegu and Busan peaking to 23. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 23 and 22, while Dokdo tops out at 20. Now, pleasant weather conditions are forecast to continue through the weekend and into the beginning of next week, providing the perfect setting for those of you planning to head out to enjoy the autumn colors. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, we've come to the end of another newscast. As always, thank you for watching. Do join us for more, same time tomorrow.